Recorded Books presents Radiant Sky by Alan Smale. Narrated by Vivian Carter. Part 1. Transpolar. November 1982 to February 1983. Chapter 1. Lunar South Pole, Vivian Carter, January 22nd, 1983. Freedom was a dirt bike on the moon. Vivian Carter bounced down into a small, deep crater and bumped up the other side. As she crested the rim, her front wheel lifted off the regolith, and she gunned her engine and pulled the bike higher into an impromptu wheelie before guiding it back to level motion, or what passed for level on the uneven lunar surface. Dust flew. Cool. Eat your heart out, Evel Knievel. A low, rocky ridge extended out to her right, stark against the sky. That ridge currently separated Vivian from her crew, and she was out of their sight, which wasn't supposed to happen, against safety protocols and all that, which was ironic since Vivian herself had written the stringent protocols for this mission. But what was the point of commanding the first transpolar lunar expedition if she couldn't have any fun? Besides, on her first extended stay on the moon 3 years ago, she'd been isolated from the rest of humanity for weeks. If anyone was overqualified to bend the rules, it was Vivian. Even her Capcoms back at Mission Control had given up chiding her about it. It wasn't like she could get lost for long. Since Vivian's last mission, lunar navigation and comms had improved immensely. Just last year, 4 Navstar satellites had been placed in lunar orbit for tracking and data relay. Those orbits were well separated and of varying inclinations, so the satellites regularly swept the higher latitudes as well as the equator. Between the Navstars, Eagle Station in its equatorial orbit, and any other Apollo command and service modules that might also be up there, these assets greatly improved communications between the various U.S. contingents in space and on the surface, as well as enabling course location finding. At the equator, radio coverage was almost constant. This close to the South Pole, though, Vivian's LGS-1 mission experienced irregular dead spots in coverage that could last a couple of hours or more. They were in one of those comms holes now, so it was all quiet in Vivian's headset, which was nice, because it allowed her to both relax and concentrate. She needed that concentration because the sunlight was coming at a really weird angle. At these extreme southern latitudes, the sun was constantly less than 5 degrees from the horizon, and that grazing incidence affected everything. Even relatively meager hills nearby could block the sun's rays altogether, casting knife-edged shadow pools of deep darkness. The long, jagged shadows emphasized the sizes of boulders and the heights of crater rims. To avoid pocks and furrows that might throw her, Vivian had to weave erratically across the surface. Plus, it was almost impossible to drive directly toward the sun when it was that low, because of the difficulty in gauging the true height or depth of any obstacles ahead. Due to an effect the scientists called zero-phase lighting, the same tended to happen when they traveled directly away from grazing incidence sunlight. Its scattered reflections off the soil and boulders were almost as bright, while their own shadows would also obscure the path immediately in front of them. So, right now, Vivian's team was taking a somewhat circuitous route, keeping the sun behind them and to the left, effectively following the terminator around the pole. Occasionally, the blue orb of the Earth would peep over the horizon, and then appear to dip below it again due to the local terrain. Vivian found it a cheering sight. The sky had been lonely for all these weeks without it, and once Earth came reliably above the horizon again, LGS-1 would be back in direct S-band contact with Mission Control in Houston. "Time for a break," she said to no one, took her gloved hand off the throttle lever, let the bike bump to a halt, stuck out her legs to keep herself upright, and drank in the solitude. Magnificent desolation. The craggy line of the ridge above her. No one else visible. No Earth in the sky. Out of contact, completely alone. Once, any one of those things had ranged from unsettling to terrifying. Now this solitude was a rare joy. Sunlight sparkled off moon dust. She heard only her own breathing and the fans in her helmet.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?